research community, this knowledge seeking community has to join hands and share knowledge. And the knowledge that we seek, the quest we pursue and find out the answers through our research need to be put into the public forums for the benefit of the mankind. So when you put your research in the social context, relevance to the society, definitely you can do more good. And for that, as an scholar or the researcher, you need to bring your findings to a forum where your research will be visible. And your research will be visible through the high impact journals. Basically, you may be doing a research. Basically, you may be doing a research which will be very relevant, very useful, but until and unless it reaches the people in a proper manner, will not be making the proper contribution. So today is the 11th activity of the forum, the third webinar of the webinar series. And I'm very thankful to the Prof. Anis to share her experiences without wasting much time. I request the moderator to proceed the proceedings. I seek this opportunity as a president of PGSA to inform you all that we are open to any inputs and any requirement you are in need, and our support group on WhatsApp and our social media groups are very active. Kindly pour in your suggestions and whatever kind of support you can extend. We'll be glad to see your support. Thank you once and all.
Thank you, Brother Rimas, for this informative speech and insightful. Moving to the second event, we are privileged to have her as our guest speaker today. She is a professor and researcher in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, IIUM, specialized in microelectronics, sensors, and analog very large-scale integration, abbreviated by VLSI. She was appointed as the head of research in the Kuliya of Engineering in 2011 until 2013. She is also the senior member of Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Her publications, which are nearly 200, cited in 1,200 different papers. Without further ado, it is now my pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Anis Norashikin Nordin to deliver her instructions and tips on how to publish in a high-impact journal. Prof. Anis, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do, yes.
Okay, all right. So sometimes my internet might be, just in case my internet is not on perfectly, so just let me know if you cannot hear anything. So I would like to thank the PGSA for inviting me here today, and I'm very happy to see that there are many participants, and I think that the online platform is a very good method to get the PG students connected, especially in this age of the pandemic, and you do not have physical, you have less physical interaction. And I think when you do your postgraduate studies, you will have a lot of stresses and a lot of challenges. So it is good to have a support group, and I'm very happy that the PGSA of IIUM is very active and will support their student members. So I hope that you guys will join, and you at least you know that you are not the only one facing a lot of problems during your stay in this pandemic. Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I will start. So today's sharing is on how to publish in high impact journals. And actually, I wanted, this is like a sharing session, so you can interact or you can ask questions while I am presenting or also later. Okay. So today's topics that I will cover is the basic considerations for publishing in high impact journals, and why are you doing it and for whom, and then how to understand different journal indexing services such as ISI, Scopus, and how to evaluate them, and a bit of insight on how the high impact journals work, and the important considerations in publishing high impact journals. What are the reasons where that you get rejected from high impact journals, and some strategies for improving the chances to publish in high impact journals, and some of my personal experience. Okay, so why do we need to publish? Right, so all of us here are in the business of education. So you are doing very good research and you are trying to create new knowledge. And this knowledge will not be useful if you keep it to yourself. So basically, you have to teach this knowledge and also make the public, your research findings public, so that a lot of the community can benefit from your studies. So I think the PGSA president just now also mentioned that you need to publish. So publish is one method of giving out your research findings. There are many ways you can do about you not necessarily just publishing in academic papers. You can give talks like this, for example. You can teach others in the lab. You can have peer-to-peer teaching. So as long as the knowledge gets is given to the others, and other people can benefit from that, this is why actually we do research. Okay. So, all right. So now where do we publish? So there are different levels of difficulty when you want to think about publishing. You can, of course, start with a book chapter. So a book chapter is relatively easier to publish compared to a journal. And a book chapter usually has the basic theoretical knowledge and some latest findings. So sometimes some students also opt to write a book chapter first, and then once you have sufficient findings from your work, you can write a conference. So a conference is a usually a 4-page article. You can summarize whatever findings that you have into a conference paper. And then after that comes the non-index journal. Non-index journal means that it is not indexed, or it is not collected in a specific database. And this is relatively easier because they do not have so stringent reviewing. And the final one is the index journal, and this is the most difficult, especially if you are aiming to publish in a high impact journal. Okay, so there are a lot of reasons why people want to publish. Sometimes people publish just because it's a requirement of their PhD or masters. And some faculty members, they publish because they want to be promoted. So in order to get promoted, you must have a certain number of publications. And you also might want to publish because you want to be recognized in the field or the subfield of your research, right? And the university itself, the university college, the college or the university's ranking also depends on the number of journals published by the university. So in Malaysia, we have the MIRA, what is called the MIRA, which is the research assessment tool, where they rate the research levels of each university and they award stars. So for example, IIUM has 5 stars, and the research universities like UM, UPM, they have 6 stars. And they count the number of journals that the researchers publish in the university. But the most important thing that should be reason actually why you want to publish is not actually just to graduate or just to get promoted. Or the idea is that you have some knowledge that you want to share with other people. So this should be your main aim actually why you want to write a journal. So your journal will document all your hard work, and if somebody wants to replicate it, they should be able to based on your writing. Okay. So let's go, before we go into how to write, we have to understand first what are the journal indexing services. There are so many, and sometimes they might be confusing and you don't know which one to look for. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of them first before we go on how to target which journal you want to write. Okay, so there are many indexing services. So here I have put in, for example, like Google Scholar, POJ, Scopus, and Web of Science. So, so the higher the impact, the higher impact usually is from the Web of Science, also known as the ISI. Scopus has also the wide impact, has a high impact, but it is not as high as the Web of Science. And underneath that is the DOJ, Directory of Open Access Journals, and also the Google Scholar. So all these are important. A journal can be listed in all four, but also it can be listed in 3 or 2, any of these indexing services. So the more indexing services which list your journal, the more coverage your journal gets. Okay. Right. So what is ISI? So this is the what we are targeting today with the Web of Science or the ISI. So the Web of Science is the new name for the ISI. And ISI, I think a lot of people are familiar with ISI, and ISI stands for the Institute of Scientific Information. So this was bought over by the Thomson Reuters company earlier, and it covers thousands of academic journals, and they rename it as Web of Knowledge or Web of Science, the database service. Okay. So in the Web of Science, they have, because they have so many journals, they have separated it into 3. The highest is the SCI or Science Citation Index. And then they have emerging one, or known as Science Citation Index. So they expand, they include newer journals into the SCIE. So these are for science-based journals. And for social science, you have the Social Science Citation Index, SSCI. And for the arts and humanities, you have the Arts and Humanities Citation Index. So some of the journals which are under IIUM also listed in the SCIE or the Web of Science under the emerging one. For example, here I'm showing you the IIUM Engineering Journal. So it has been listed in the Emerging Sources Citation Index, which is part of the ISI or the Web of Science. There are many other journals from IIUM which is also listed in SCI, not just the Engineering Journal. I think some from the social sciences. Okay, so how do you find the ISI journal? So there is a master list, and in order to find the master list, you go to this link. I've written here the link, and later on you can go and check on it, and you can enter any name of the journal to check whether it is in the ISI database or not. So when a journal says that it is ISI index or Web of Science index, it should be in this database. Okay, so you would want to double check just in case the journal is just claiming something, whether sometimes they claim but they are not actually in the database. So you can double check by going through this website. Okay, so I'm put in here a screenshot. So once you click this, you can you will enter here the Web of Science group, and then you just type in your journal name and click the search journal, and then you can find the journal there. if it is listed. So this is one example which I'm showing you, which is the biosensors and bioelectronics. So once the search comes out, it will tell you which indexing is it covered in. So it is under the Science Citation Index, the Science Citation Index expanded, right? So this is the topics: agriculture, biology, environmental services, and this is the journal. So and you have the journal metrics over here. Okay. Another method of checking here, they also have a ranking, which is known as the journal citation reports. And this journal citation report lists the impact factor for each journal that it tracks. Okay, the impact factor is the measure of the frequency in which the average article in a journal has been cited in a particular year for that Web of Science. Okay. So they collect the data, and the impact factor is published every June, and it corresponds to the previous year's data. So for example, this year, if you have the impact factor from June, so it is actually the 2019 data, and they check on how many people have actually cited that particular journal. So if there are more citations, then the impact factor of the journal becomes higher. If the impact factor is higher, it means that there are many people who have cited it, and that means at least there are many people who have read the journal at least. Okay, so the journal citation report can be published in two editions. One is for the sciences and one is for the social sciences. So they have a lot of data from around 5,700 journals in the area of science and technology. For the social sciences, it's a bit less, but there's still a lot, 1,700 journals in the social sciences. So the Web of Science also publish a list of highly cited researchers. And when the research is highly cited, it also improves the ranking of the university. So how do you check? Just now I showed you the link. So from there, when you click, for example, you have searched for biosensors and bioelectronics. It also gives you, on the same page, you can click the journal citation report, and it gives you the journal impact factor. So for this journal, for example, the impact factor is 9.518 in 2018. They haven't published the 2019. Okay. And underneath that page, if you, for example, you decide that you don't want to publish because that one has a too high impact factor, you can also click on Find Similar Journals and look at other journals and their impact factor to see what are your opportunities or where you would like to publish, right? So this is a method on how to check in the Web of Science. Okay. Unfortunately, Web of Science, they also have subscriptions. So if you are a student and you do not have subscription, so there might be limited access. But the ones I'm showing here is the one that you are able to access if it is just free access, right? But if you are actually you actually have the subscription, you can have you can do even more analytics on which journal is better. Okay, so because Web of Science is also it has limited to your services, so I mean we cannot access all their services. Another method to check is in Scopus. So Scopus is the other indexing service, and it's also good to check. And they also have very good and reputable journals. So you can also go to this link, www.scopus.com/sources, and you can also type in the journal that you wish to search for. Or you can also put in a keyword. Okay, so for example, this journal, so for example, it has many lists of journals. So for example, if we search, we look at one, this Nature Review journals, right? It is listed under material chemistry, and it has 23,000 citations and 193 documents from 2016 to 2019. right? So if you click down there, you can see many things. For example, the site score, rank and trend. So this is the site score, and because Scopus and Web of Science are different companies, so they have a slightly different nomenclature or the naming. So it is the same like high impact, but they just have a different name. Instead of impact factor, they have the site score, right? So you have this, the site score, SGR and SNRP. And you can also look at the site score trend. So if it is in the higher 99 percentile, so the higher the site score, the better the journal is. So you can see over here, Nature Review Materials, it is number 1 out of 287 journals in materials chemistry. And this is in the year of 2019. Okay, and if you look at the site score trend, it has been increasing from 2017 to 2019. Okay, so we can also look at the university's research impact based on the number of publications. So as you can see over here, I took this screenshot from Prof. Zahangir's Alam's slides. So he did an analysis for the journals published by IIUM researchers from the year of 2005 to 2017. You can generate this data from Scopus. So as you can see here in the beginning, we have less and we have more than 700 journals. Okay, and you can also see who are the main, the top publishers in the university. So like how many documents are listed here. So these are the top researchers who publish a lot of journals in the universities. Okay, so another thing, if you remember the indexing services, we had WS, then we had Scopus, we had DOJ, and finally is the Google Scholar. So I suggest that all of you who are beginning their career in in your postgraduate studies, you can list your stuff in Google Scholar. So this will help to track how many people are reading your journal, how many people are citing your journal, right? And you can also select, you can also see your performance over the years, right? So Google Scholar is a free web search engine that indexes the full text of the metadata of scholarly literature for all disciplines. So it includes everything, peer-reviewed, online journal, thesis, dissertation, preprint, abstract, technical report, and including patents, right? So it's very comprehensive, and because it is free, a lot of people will check Google Scholar. So for example, if you're also planning to interview for a job later, the employer might also check your Google Scholar if you are planning to work in the academic line, or if you are just want to collaborate with someone, another university, for example, they will also check your Google Scholar because it's the easiest thing to check. So that's why I suggest that everybody try to register yourself in Google Scholar, and it will track your publications. Right? And in the Google Scholar we have something known as the H index. So the H index quantifies the scientific productivity, which is the how many papers did you write, and the scientific impact of the scientist. So, and the scientific impact is based on the number of citations that you receive. So the index is based on the scientist's most quoted paper and the number of citations that they have received, right? And this index, the name was H because it comes from this guy, Jorge E. Hirsch. Okay, so he developed this H index. So you can see for this this professor, you can see that his H index is 14, and how many citations he had since 2011. Okay, and there is also another index which is known as the I-10 index. So the I-10 index is the number of publications with at least 10 citations. So for example, some researchers don't have so many journals, but they have very high citations. And if they have at least 10 citations, it will go into this I-10 index, right? So this I-10 index is easier to calculate compared to the H index. It just counts the number of journals that have at least 10 citations. So for this professor, he has 20 journals, which has at least 10 citations. Okay, and the last one is the DOJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals. So right now, because there are a lot of the journals which are based on famous publishers, they are very, very expensive. And sometimes if you want to access them, you have to go through, or you have to pay the subscription, or you have to request the library to access for you. So currently, researchers are also going for open access so that everyone can access your journal. So I also like to go for open access journals, but sometimes the open access journals also have publication fees. So you have to take into mind that open access journals, you have to pay for the publication. So it means the author has to pay for the publication, but the readers get the publication for free. So you have to budget for this open access journal. So you can have everybody access your journal, but there is also a price to it. So this DOJ is the Directory of Open Access Journal, and you can check on which open access journals are mostly cited from this DOJ. Okay, so now another thing that is important is the unique author identifier. Okay, so there are many databases. So depending on the different database that you are registered in, you will have a specific author ID. This is related to the name that you publish the article in. So for example, my name is Norashikin Nordin, and I put my name for publication is a.n.nordin. So that when they want to collect all the journals I have published, they all have the unique author identifier or author ID. Okay, so my author ID is Anis and Nordin. So please don't publish using different names, because then it is very hard for them to index. So if you put one day you put, for example, for me, if one day I put Anis and then Nordin, one day I put Norashikin Nordin, then it is very hard to calculate the I-10 index or the H index. Okay, so you should be consistent in naming your publication, right? So there are many researchers' IDs, so it is dependent on which indexing service. So researcher ID for Thomson Reuters, Scopus author ID for Scopus, and ORCID ID as well. Okay, so the researcher ID can track the number of citations per year, and it will provide this citation metrics similar to the one provided in the Google Scholar. But the Google Scholar, you might have a higher citation metrics because Google Scholar collects everything, not just the ones in Web of Science. Whereas the Web of Science only collects based on their database. That means only the publications that are in Web of Science are listed in the citation metrics. Okay, similarly, Scopus also has the citation metrics, so you can check. So for this person, Rosa, so you can see she has how many citations per year and whether it is increasing or decreasing. And this is the same thing. It is only for the journals that are listed in Scopus. But there are more journals listed in Scopus compared to Web of Science. So again, the citation metrics might be higher. And finally, there is ORCID ID. So ORCID ID also can list the identifier for each researcher. So sometimes when you want to publish in a journal, they will request your ORCID ID. So you can also register for this indexing service. Okay, so now we discuss on how ISI or high impact journals work. So what that actually makes the journal high impact? It is actually determined by the strict refereeing process. So for each journal, there are 2 to 4 referees, and the referees are in the specific field or subfield that you choose, right? And these referees are very strict, so meaning that they will reject or they will write a lot of comments and they will thoroughly review. So the journals that are not high impact means that they have high acceptance rate. So that means the review process is not so strict or not as rigorous. So for high impact journals, usually the acceptance rate is less than 50%. That means less than, out of 2 journals, less than 1 get accepted. Okay. So this journal, because it has gone through the strict refereeing process, the journal articles tend to be of higher quality. And when it is higher quality, more people cite the journal. All right. So there are many categories or subcategories within the ISI journals. Let's say Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And the highest level of the journal define the most important and most original contribution field. Okay, so if you manage to get your journal accepted in an ISI journal or Web Science journal, it means that it is one of the indicators, but not necessarily, is that your research is considered as a significant contribution to the field. So you can celebrate if you have actually managed to publish in a highly indexed journal. Okay, so how do you select the ISI journal? You first choose the field of knowledge. Let's say sciences, engineering, and then the subtopic. So for example, electronics or communication engineering, right? And then you select the journal within which quartile you want. So these are the levels, Q1, Q2, Q3, right? So in order to target for that specific journal, you should check what are the previous articles published there. So you can benchmark your work with the works that are accepted by them. Okay, so you can just first check what kind of work do they accept. Is it a review? Is it original research article? Is it letters? So letters are shorter version of journals. So letters can be 2 pages, 4 pages, whereas original journal article can be 8 pages, right? Also, another important thing is to check the turnaround time for the articles to be submitted to the journal, right? Whether the journal publishes it quickly or they take a very long time to review, right? So this can be checked by looking at the journal itself, when is the acceptance date and when is the published date and when is the submitted date. So if the person submits in January and it gets published in June, so that's considered as a quite fast turnaround time. But if they submit in January and in December it's still reviewing, so that shows that the journal has a very slow turnaround time. Okay, the turnaround time might also be dependent on the number of publications per year. So if the journal publishes every month, so it has to cycle through the publications faster. Okay, and check the type of fees, whether how much do they charge? Do they have charge for open access, or do they have no charges at all? And whether it has an online edition or not. Okay, and you can check the length and the structure of the manuscript acceptable to the journal. So this is the number of pages and what kind of articles. Okay, so this is the basic review process in ISI journal. So you submit, you will have the chief editor will first screen it, the first screening. Okay, so if it meets the basic criteria, then he will send it to the reviewer. So depending on what kind of journal, so the reviewers will be more, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and this is considered as the peer review. So if the majority of the reviewers accept, then the chief editor will send it back to the author to revise. So to revise the English, the grammar, the technical topics, right? And then once the revision is complete, the editor will go for a second review, depending on whether the author has revised according to what the reviewer has mentioned. And then if the revisions are accepted, then they can decide to publish. If the reviewers think that the corrections done were not sufficient, they can consider to reject the manuscript. Okay, so if it is a high impact journal, the reviewers will be very rigorous and will check a lot of things. And in a low impact journal, meaning that this cycle will be very fast, it will just pass through and they will not check a lot on your journal. Okay, so what are the most important journal considerations in publishing for the ISI journal? So you have to ask yourself these questions first. So is your research worth publishing? Do you have sufficient data? Do you have, is your report describing an original and significant contribution to the research literature or to the current existing research in the field? So in order to do this, you should discuss with your supervisor to see whether your research is actually worth publishing or not, or you need to run more experiments before you can publish. All right. And then another question is, how can you prepare to write the research paper as effective as possible? Okay. And how does the journal acceptance procedure work? Does it require a lot of steps? Right? And then how to select, where do I publish to, which kind of journal? And then the last one is how to increase the citation of my papers. So, so there are two types of articles that are published in journal. So articles that describe original and significant contributions to the research literature. Articles that effectively present the original and significant contributions to the research literature. So actually, I think there's a typo here. The second one is actually the review journal. So the second one is actually the review article. One is your own research, original and significant contribution to the current work. And the other one is a review of the current work that is presented. Okay. So what is the contribution to the research literature? So the contribution to the research literature needs to be defined in the context of the nature of the research enterprise. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that a significant contribution can be understood in the context of the current research environment. Okay, so you need to read what the current researchers are saying about this work. So for example, my field of research is in microfluidics. And if we look at microfluidics, what is the most important work that they are doing in this field? For example, in microfluidics right now, they are doing a lot of studies on point-of-care devices or biosensors, for example. So you should see if there are a lot of scholars who are working in that field, and what do they think about that topic? Do they think that this is outdated, or do they think that there's already enough findings, right? And you have to compare your current research, so what findings did you have, with the existing research. So this is like a benchmarking. Okay, and the other thing is that if you publish your work, do you think that other people will appreciate whatever you presented? So if you think that they would appreciate your research, you think that a lot of people will benefit from your research, then this is considered as a significant contribution. Okay, so these are what the editors and reviewers look for in a research paper. It has to be original. Number two, it has to be relevant to the topic of the journal, right? And number three is your research methodology. Did you conduct the experiment correctly? Are your conclusions valid and objective, right? Is the methodology written in a clear manner? Is there proper structure to your journal? And what is the quality of writing? So your writing should be as concise as possible. Try not to make very long-winded sentences. The write-up must have good grammar, and the argument or whatever your hypothesis must be sound, and you have to have a flow to your write-up. Okay, so you have to explain what is the importance of your work. So if you say that I am creating a sensor to measure strain or to measure stretch or strain, so you need to think. The reader might think, so what? So why is it important? Right. So you need to have the motivation for doing the work. So what is the motivation for creating that type of sensor, for example? Is it to measure cracks in the ceiling or the walls, right? So you have to explain a practical application, right? And then you show your experiment results. The experiment results should be benchmarked with other existing work. And when you compare, please use recent and relevant references. So recent means in the last 5 years usually. So please do put references that are very, very old unless you are doing talking about theory. But still, usually reviewers prefer if the most recent and relevant references are cited. Okay, and one thing to check is that you are writing a topic that is within the editorial scope and objectives of the journal. So you can check this at the journal website. What is the scope of the publication? Okay, so before you send the paper, you need to think about what could be the possible points that could cause the journal to be rejected. So you would like to avoid that. So many papers are rejected simply because they don't fulfill the journal requirements. That means they are not in the scope of the journal. In this case, they don't even go to the review process. The chief editor will automatically reject your journal. So please check the scope of the journal. That is very, very important. Okay. So when you are thinking to write a journal, you can identify a few possible target journals. And I've shown you earlier on how to check that in the Web of Science and Scopus, right? So you can have a series of them, like option number 1, number 2, number 3. So you can send to the first one. If they reject, then you have the backup, right? So follow the author guidelines strictly, the scope, the type of paper, the word length, the references style, etc. Okay, and if the journal has many subsections, you have to find out where you should send your paper to, which editor or which subject area should you classify your journal under. Okay, sometimes I've never done this before, but some researchers like to send an outline or an abstract to a journal, to the editor. But sometimes you can just go directly to the system, right? So the most important thing is to check the accepted papers in that publication. So read at least one issue of the publication so you have an idea of the quality that they expect. Okay, so we've gone through just now. This is for Elsevier. So you can also use this to find out how to find the suitable journal. So you can go to, if you are targeting Elsevier as the publisher, right? You can type a topic and then they will suggest the appropriate journals for you, right? So for example, just now was cloud computing. So now they show you the different kinds of journals that are possible that you can send to. So as you can see here, it will tell you what is the impact factor, the open access, whether it's open access or not. Here it is open access, right? What is the production time? So the production time means that how long does the cycle take? So 22 weeks. And here it is open access, so there's an open access fee of $3,100, right? Or if you want to go for the free journal, so it can be, you can opt for the non-open access version. Okay, so now let's look at for the reasons of rejection from an ISI journal. So the common problems is that the issue is not important, whatever that the topic that you are mentioning to them is not important enough, and it is not an original, sufficiently original. And another possible problem could be that it is not within the scope of the journal. And if your data is too old, then it is now irrelevant actually. So that could also be a possibility on why the journal is rejected. And then another part is if you do not explain your methodology well, and if your results are suspicious, they could also reject your journal because of that. And the other two is the conflict of interest and ethical issues. Okay. All right. So the scientific problem is examples of scientific problems are unclear hypotheses. So when you're writing your hypothesis, you should make very clear statements so that the reader can understand very easily what are you trying to prove, right? So for example, you are trying to prove that this strain sensor can work, for example, to measure strains or cracks in walls, for example. Explain very clearly. And you have to say what is the kind of experiment, right? So this poor or weak design means that the design of the device or the design of the experiments, if you're just running experiments. So you have to explain your design of experiments well. Okay, sample bias, or the sample is too small. So for when you do like biological measurements, you must have enough samples so that the data can be accepted. So sometimes they require samples to be tested in triplicates, that means 3 times before the data can be accepted. Okay, so and then you have the calculations, your statistics calculation, they should be correct. And the last two is the conclusion. You should make appropriate conclusion based on your work. And finally, this is the easy one, you should have the updated references. Okay, so high impact journals, they want the presentation to be good. So everything should be well written, well organized. The flow should be there in your write-up. Okay, your tables should follow the format and do not make any careless errors. And the figures should be very, very good. Clear figures can explain the experiment or your work much better than a lot of words. So try to make very good figures and try to use software, imaging software to present your work or your graphs, your schemes very nicely. Okay, it's okay. I think that's very obvious. So these are examples of illustrations and figures. So please prepare high quality figures. So if you prepare very low quality figures, the reviewer will think that you are not serious in presenting your work. So if you can see that all these are drawn very meticulously, the idea is very clear, you can see. So this experiment, it wants to show you isolation, sorting, variable testing, migration essays, and differential monitoring. So the picture is very, very clear. So you try to get very good image, for example, and if you have experiments that require the microscope, try and make sure that you have added the rulers for the dimension, and these are the drawings are very, very clear. So the high quality figures improve the acceptance rate of papers, as it shows the meticulousness of the researcher, meticulousness and the seriousness of the researcher. Okay, so so these are author times that the reviewers do not like. So if you submit 2 publications and do not inform, so you are not allowed to submit the same article to 2 different publishers at the same time. So if you submit once and then it's rejected, then you submit to another place, it is fine. But do not submit the same article to 2 publishers simultaneously. Another thing is salami slicing. Salami slicing means that you slice your work into different sections and you publish them like that. So this is also not good, and obviously plagiarism. If you copy, they will reject it immediately. So please cite your references and do not plagiarize. Okay, so here are some strategies to improve your chances of publishing in ISI journals. Okay, strategy number 1, understand the chemistry of scholarly search, right? So this, I think, among the most important things that I learned when doing my postgraduate studies is how to search the correct term. So you have to practice, I think, for this. So if you want to find a paper on strain sensors, you have to use the correct item in Google or the correct keyword, right? So I think after doing it many, many times, you will get better at finding the relevant journals that is related to your work, right? Once you have found the journals that you is related to your work, please select or refer to the journals that are high impact. So when you refer to high impact journals, then you are benchmarking yourself to high quality work. And this way, your work also slowly becomes high quality as well, because you are comparing yourself to a higher benchmark. So do not compare your work to suspicious journals, and this will lower your quality. Okay, it is good to start writing during the initial stages for the doctoral program, and think about the core concept about impact factor, peer review, contribution to knowledge, and scientific knowledge. This one we have gone through earlier. And the last strategy is to build network and collaboration. So one way to improve the quality of your publication is to collaborate. And if you collaborate with scientists from all over the world who are better than you, they will slowly improve your own work. So sometimes my students do not like it when I collaborate with other people. But actually, the reason why I'm doing that is in order to improve the research. So one person cannot possibly know everything. So if you can collaborate, you can learn from each other. This will improve the quality of your work and therefore your writing as well. Okay, so the writing focus. So you have to outline first. And usually a journal is broken up into abstract, introduction, methods, results, and discussion. And then after that, once you have done that, you revise before you submit to your supervisor. Okay, so if you have finally managed to submit, and then the journal decision, will be the following. It can be one of the following. One is accepted without revisions. This is like the paper is almost perfect. And the second one is accepted with minor revisions. So there maybe just grammatical revisions, slight changes to the location of the figures. And the last one is accepted with major revision. Major revision is usually the one with the headache, where sometimes the reviewer comment can be even longer than your journal. So this means that you almost have to like rewrite your whole journal. Okay, the next one is rejected, but encouraged to submit with revision. This means that if this is the case, your paper, when you submit the paper, you have to resubmit as a fresh paper. And the last one is the one that you do not want to hear at all, which is the revision, rejected with no revision. That means the quality of the work is not suitable for that journal. Okay, so now if your paper gets a revision, you need to carefully respond to the reviewer's comment. That means you need to answer one by one. Okay, so before we go into that, so I will just share my personal experience. So when I first, one of my most cited journals is, my most cited article is in the biosciences and bioelectronics, and it is a review journal. So that means that it is not it's not written on a new work, but it's actually a compilation of all the reviews of all the current work that is present in the literature. These review papers are very good to write, but they are also very, very hard, and you need to be an expert in the field usually in order to write that in that topic if you want to submit to a high impact journal. So when we wrote, so in order, like I mentioned earlier, I like to collaborated with my colleague to write the journal, and we divided it into sections. And the first review came out comment. Our article was about 12 pages, and 4 reviewers, and more reviewer had so many comments. So you have to respond one by one and correct your journal. Each itemize them. For each comment, you take your correction. So I think after 2 revisions, Alhamdulillah, it was finally accepted. So It's easy to move around and to put your data from the Excel to PowerPoint, and yeah. So yes, I developed the skill of drawing using PowerPoint during my PhD studies.
Well,
But they are yes.
Is it necessary to redraw the drawing? Suppose I want to cite your paper, so I need to redraw your drawing again, or I just
It's up to you, but if you redraw and you put it in your point of view, it would be better rather than just copying and citing it.
Oh, okay. Ma'am, what is the difference between index journal and referred journal?
Index and refereed, I think. Refereed journal means that the journal is checked, or it has, when you submit, there are reviewers. That's refereed journal. Index means that it is in a database, for example, Scopus or Web of Science or DOJ. So they are collecting the list, the names of the journal. So that is index. So they track how many people are citing that journal. So it's slightly different from reference.
Okay, ma'am. So does it mean that all journal, I mean, all index journal are referred, but all referred journal are not indexed, like that?
Yes, in a way, but index journal, there are different quality of index journal. Some of them may have be reviewed, but may not be reviewed. Like, the reviewers will not comment and just accept. So that's also referee, not referee. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Google Scholar registration. How to register for Google Scholar, ma'am?
Yeah, Google Scholar, you can just link it to your Google Gmail account. And if you link your Gmail account, you log in and register. You can register in Google Scholar. But yeah, register
how many accounts should our researcher should have? I mean, like social media, how many?
How many? That one is a different topic, I think. That one is more on your whether you want to have a lot of publicity or not. It also depends on you, on how well you can control your time in social media. So there's a drawback. You can be very active in social media, but you may also waste a lot of time. So you want to balance. So it's up to you, actually. Some people are very active in Facebook, Instagram, and all that. Yeah. But for research, I suggest LinkedIn and Twitter. Yeah, just that, those two.
LinkedIn, Twitter, and Google Scholar. So 3.
Google Scholar is not really considered a social media, but yeah, it's just to track. You don't need to update. It's just a passive thing. You don't need to do anything. Just register your Gmail account, and it will automatically create the thing for you, the Google Scholar ID for you.
Ma'am, I'm looking for the researcher ID requirement, like Google Scholar, ResearchGate, and all those things, like for researcher.
Yes, but ResearchGate, like the ORCID ID, sometimes this is required when you submit the journal. So if they require, then you register. If they don't require, then you don't need to register for that. But for Scopus ID, if you publish a journal that is in Scopus, they will automatically create a Scopus ID for you.
Okay. Ma'am, what are the like facilities for author? I mean, do they get to read subscribed article? Like if I am a Scopus author, can I be able to read all the Scopus article? Like, I mean, is there any facility for author like?
Not really, I think. They don't, unless you are subscribed and the journey or the library has subscription, I don't think they allow. Sometimes they give that offer to reviewers, like to encourage people to review, they will give some free articles like for you.
Okay. Ma'am, how to find suitable data sets for research from online?
Okay, that one, it depends on your topic, I think. You want to do literature review, or you are doing, like, for example, artificial intelligence and you want a specific data set?
Ma'am, I want to do a research, not literature review, a full research. But I need to look, I am looking for a suitable data set for research from online, because due to the lockdown and COVID-19, physically lab access is not possible, so it's fully online.
Okay, but it depends on your topic, right?
Yes. So how to approach to find the data? Okay, if I go there, this is where, so I can find data sets.
Yeah, I think it's very open-ended. The question is too general. So, for example, if you want open access, for example, if you are developing a hardware and you want a programming, there's like GitHub and all the examples from the other people who have programmed in the topic. So it depends on your topic, actually. Very random, the question.
Should I example? Like, I mean, many questions asked, like they are looking for data sets.
Yeah, but what kind of data set?
Say, for example, a data set for maybe particular, I mean, anything you can consider, like for a particular research, someone is looking for data sets, maybe for survey data, or maybe how to.
Ibrahim has mentioned the data sets related to AI. You can go to this link, datasetsearch.research.google.com. It depends on what actually you're doing research on. So if you want Google Analytics, there is analytics. There's a lot of data there as well. Like I mentioned, GitHub has a lot of data for programming. Depends. Different databases for different data sets. Maybe you can discuss specifically with your supervisor in that.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, is there any research ethics committee in like in university bar IIUM? And what kind of research should take approval from research ethics committee?
Okay, so for the research ethics committee, it's when you need to have measurements which involve humans. So then you need to have approval from the IIUM research ethics committee. They are based in Kuantan. So you will write the ethical approval form and you say how many subjects are you going to involve. Have you gotten their consent? And they have a form. And then they will meet and decide whether they give you approval to do the research or not.
Oh, ma'am, how long does it take for taking the approval and sending?
They meet, I think, every 2 weeks or every month, something like that. It's not that hard if you fill in the form correctly.
Okay. Ma'am, how to find benchmark paper for research verification?
Benchmark paper, so you have to look at the, you will search first in Google Scholar, and then you find the list, and you have to read the paper and see whether it's really related to your work or not. And please choose the journals that are good journals. I've already explained about how do you find the journal ranking and impact factors. So if you do multiple search, then you realize which journals are good in that field and which journals are not. So then you should use this benchmark, the ones that are good as your benchmark.
So, ma'am, all the good journal like Elsevier, Scopus, ISI, all will be suitable for benchmark.
Yes, correct. So now, how to refine that? You have to read the journal and see whether they are most really related to your work. So, for example, if it's and it also has to be recent research, so in the last 5 years, and you have to read the work and see whether it's really related or not. Try to understand the work.
Okay. So, ma'am, for literature review, suppose I have read 20 paper and I have just make it summary and all the process I have done, like synthesize, critic, and cite. And I want to know that, within 20, is it sufficient to do the literature review or not? Like, how to know that all the task is sufficient?
If you want to write a review journal, then your citation should be close to 100. If you want to just like a literature review chapter, maybe less, but they should be all relevant. It's not just the numbers, it's whether they are related to your work or not.
Okay. So, ma'am, I just want to know, like, suppose I have gone through Google Scholar, but maybe other databases have some different article, maybe related to my topic, and I ignored that. So, like, is it okay to literature review with research? Because beyond my search might be more research.
Google Scholar is quite comprehensive. They include everything mostly. So I think they are good to do a screening, and then after that you can fine tune using Elsevier or all the other journals. Let's say in Google Scholar they cited a paper in Elsevier, then you can go to the paper in Elsevier, and they will also suggest. If you look at the website, when you look at the page where you read the paper, they will have suggestions also on the right, similar papers. So you can also click on those.
Okay. Ma'am, I think it's still...
Writing skills is another topic. I think we have to have another webinar on writing skills.
Ma'am, if you kindly just say like some title of course, like a person should have this skill to write a journal paper.
I think I mentioned just now, writing skills should be concise. Don't write long-winded sentence. Grammar must be correct. Figures must be good. And you have to have a logical progression. You have to have proper flow, not to make people confused when you are writing. They understand. Actually, sometimes students like to use bombastic words, but sometimes the bombastic words are not suitable for that particular sentence. So use the words that you understand. So if you want to improve your vocabulary, then you look at the meaning. You have to check the dictionary or the thesaurus. Yes, and then you use that word. But do not just simply put the word because you think that word, like that word, but you do not know the actual meaning.
The technical word is
Yes?
the technical word is
Yeah, I didn't hear. Adila, you wanted to ask a question?
No, just adding that the use of technical words and scientific rather than words that are most likely suitable for art, literature, and so on.
Yeah, please use the technical terms. So when you are in a specific topic, they will have specialized technical terms. For example, impedance sensor. So they use, those are jargons, but they are specific. They are technical terms. They are not necessarily jargons. Jargons are like, for example, people say they want to market the easiest, the most sellable product, and they say they use the word low-hanging fruit. That is like a jargon. It's like unnecessarily bombastic word. But if it's technical term, impedance, you cannot describe impedance unless you want to say impedance is described by resistance and capacitance and inductance, right? So that is the technical term. We have to use the correct technical term.
Okay, ma'am, how to come out with a catchy title yet readable? How to organize the content of the paper?
Okay, so catchy title. Title should be related to the topic that you are writing on, and you can look at the other titles that are suggested by other people or other researchers or in the review paper, and then you can try to derive your own title based on that. You look at other people's title, then you will have inspiration on how to write your own title. Not necessarily very catchy because we are writing scientific work. You should appropriately describe your work because we are not writing newspaper headlines, right? We do not need to have like a bombastic headline like 10 people dead for something. We have to write technical term. So look at other researchers' title as well, other journals' title. The ones in the good journal, then you can have some idea on how to describe.
Now, which quality method
Again, I didn't hear your question.
and which qualitative research method applicable to historical research?
Historical research, meaning you're writing a historical review paper?
Maybe, ma'am, it is written which qualitative research method applicable to historical research.
I am not. I'm not that familiar with historical review paper. It's like something that you are trying to document. For example, right, the history of research. I haven't experienced writing a journal like that. So I don't think I can advise on whether it should be qualitative or quantitative. There are some people who are specialized in doing systematic research, literature research, literature review. That one, I think you need to ask the expert on that one.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, how to do my research independently? Strategic mental health aspects.
Independently, mental health aspect. So I think, especially now when you're in the pandemic, I think the mental health, you need to take care of your mental health very well. And I think humans work better when they are working together. So try not to burden yourself to do everything by yourself. Independent doesn't mean alone. Independent means that you are capable of doing something, but you can also have assistance from others. So a lot of my work is based on collaboration. So this also, when you have someone also on the journey with you, it also helps to alleviate the stress. And I think try to, because a lot right now everybody's in a pandemic, so everybody's in the same situation. So I think you might want to reach out to other people. So this is why we have the LinkedIn and Twitter. So sometimes you can write your technical problems, or you can, for example, in your research, you can update in LinkedIn, and sometimes people connect in that way. So because you can also connect to very important prominent researchers who are on Twitter, and they might also reply to you. So this is you can also look at it positively. Like before, you are only limited. If you're in a researcher in IIUM, you're only limited to your friends in the lab in IIUM. But now, because everybody's at home, but everybody's connected in internet and in social media, so you can also directly connect with researchers all over the world, and they help you. So when I was doing my PhD research, I faced a lot of problems because our facility, even though I was in the US, we didn't have all the facilities. And I was doing fabrication of my devices, and I faced a lot of problems there. So sometimes the fabrication technique didn't work. Sometimes I wasn't familiar with the process. I did some mistakes. So you need to reach out to experienced people who have done that work. And how do I do that? I search for the people who has done similar, and I emailed them. And they replied. There were researchers from other states in America, even Europe. They they help me. So yeah, try. One thing that causes you stress is you think that you need to solve everything on your own. So try not to do that and try to reach out to others. And actually, there are a lot of kind people out there who would be willing to help you if you ask, actually.
Ma'am, what will be the strategic way?
So that's why you can look at the journal or their work. And sometimes researchers are flattered when people cite their work, right? So you can write to the author and say that, I found your work very interesting and I'm trying to do something similar. So could you help me with this? Like that.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, a question is written how to maintain focus on the objective, because sometimes I tend to go beyond that.
I think this one you need to check yourself. And this is why also the peer support group is also important. So you can make sure you don't deviate. And also check with your supervisor a lot. He or she will direct you to focus on the specific topic and not go off in a different line.
Okay, ma'am. We have so many questions from chat.
Okay, I will try to look at them and see if I can answer some of them. I think
what if the paper we are referring is too older, but it is also related to our research and it from the same publication? Nur Munira. It is
what
from
if the paper we are
System
referring is older, but it is super related and it is from the same publication? Same publication mean the same journal. You can cite older, but not to have them too many. You cannot, if you are writing a journal, it cannot be a lot from 1990s or like early 2000. So you should have also balance it up with the work, the research work.
Ma'am, another question from Nur Azim bin Muhammad Rajji. For open access paid journal, and does the value is similar to the unpaid journal? I mean, any skeptical view in research,
Okay.
like paid and unpaid journal publication?
Yes. So actually, open access journal, they are, of course, they don't receive, the quality is not as good as the unpaid journal. But they are trying to build up their reputation. Try not to go for open access journals that are paid but they don't have reputation. So you can look at the reputation. Of course, they are not yet as good as the unpaid journal, because these unpaid journals, they are there for many years already, maybe 60, 70 years. So the open access journals are new, so they are trying to build their reputation. The reason why people don't like the paid, or why this open access came about, is because a lot of researchers cannot access high quality publication. Thing is, these journals, the publishers, have slowly, I think, been corrupted by the money, right? They charge a very large fees to the libraries, and sometimes our libraries cannot afford it. They will charge around $100,000 sometimes for Elsevier, for this kind of famous journal. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Doctor, how long do we usually wait for an answer on whether the submitted article is accepted, rejected, citation is less than 25 is enough?
Yeah, you can select, like I showed you just now, how
long do we usually wait for an answer on whether the submitted article is accepted or rejected in higher citation?
Yes, Mahfuza, I can see the question. It depends on the journal. So if you select a journal that has a long turnaround time, then it will have you have to wait for a long time. If you select a journal that has a fast turnaround time, then they will answer within 1 month or a few weeks.
Ma'am, Prof, can you repeat how we can check the journal ranking and impact factor?
I think if I were to repeat the whole thing, it would take an hour, right? So
anyway, the video will be available for the participants
Yeah.
who will accept the feedback from. Do we need to pay in order to publish our journal in any high impact journal? And what is the cost?
It depends. I think the journal will write their own fees. Some charge a lot of money, some don't charge. Some like Elsevier, some of the like biosensors, they don't charge. So you can check at the website.
If the paper is rejected several times, should we proceed to give up?
You shouldn't proceed to give up. You should proceed to improve your journal and make it acceptable.
Okay.
Okay. Look at the reviewers' comment. Don't just send resubmit without improving it. So we improve and then resubmit somewhere else.
Say, for example, we get an article from Google Scholar, how to identify Q1, Q2, or Q3, other than looking at the DOI.
You cannot identify from Google Scholar. You have to go to the website I mentioned just now, the Scopus or the Web of Science. Google Scholar doesn't provide the impact factor.
Okay.
The impact factor is proprietary to Scopus and Web of Science. So if Google Scholar were to put the impact factor, they can be sued by Web of Science. So they don't like that.
How to identify that whether the research paper is Q1, Q2, or Q3?
Yeah, I answered that just now. You can look at the Web of Science or the Scopus. The Google Scholar is not allowed to put the Q factor in their website.
Okay.
What is the publication requirement for PhD student? I think it depends on the PG office. So maybe your respective PG office of the university. I think for UIA it's two, right?
For PG office, we have for Kulia-wise PG office, like postgraduate, deputy dean, postgraduate student, like.
Yes, madam. 2 points, 2 PE.
Yeah. Okay. Is the publication in the proceeding from the conference being ranked? Yes. Some of them are indexed. They are considered as publication, but they are considered as a conference publication.
How to search research paper related to our research topic using the right keywords and Google search? May we have example or something? How to search related research paper?
You can search in Google, for example. So you have to be a bit more specific. So for example, I'm searching for strain sensors. So you can say that, for example, what kind of strain sensors? So silver strain sensors. You have to put a lot of search terms there. So try to put maybe 4 or 5 search terms, and then it will, because it has a large database, right? So you can select. And after that, it doesn't mean, because this is done by AI, you have to read the papers that are selected. And yeah.
How to choose the right journal for an article during literature review writing? I mean to say, suppose I have a paper and I need to submit. Where should I submit?
Yeah. So I mentioned just now, you can look and you search for the topic, and they will give you the list. And from there, you can select which one is appropriate by looking at the scope.
I think we have covered many questions. Any question left from the participant?
Prof?
Yes.
I'm Dana. Assalamualaikum, Prof. I just want to ask on how the journal publisher or the referee check on the plagiarism of the author journal.
This is done automatically. They have an inbuilt software. So just like they turn it in, they will give you the citation, the plagiarism, like how many is it, similarity index. So the journal will usually run it first before they send it to reviewers even sometimes.
Oh, I see. All right. Thank you.
Any more question? I think we are going to finish the question answer session.
Okay,
All
thank you
right,
very much. Yeah.
There are no any more questions. I believe this session has come to its end. Once again, thank you again, Prof. Elise, for your valuable time and effort to give such an efficient presentation and a thorough answer for all the addressed questions. Thank you everyone for attending this online session. We truly appreciate it, and hopefully it benefited all attendees. We hope you found this morning's presentation informative and useful. I'd like to request all of you, your assistant in completing the attendance webinar feedback form, which has been shared in the chat box. We would love to hear any feedbacks or suggestions that you may have for us to serve you better. And on behalf of the organizing committees, thank you all for making time from your busy schedules to join us here this morning. It's been a pleasure hosting this webinar, and we wish you all a pleasant day. I end my duty as the Secretary General of PGSA for today's session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.